Title: Flames of Wings and the Clash of Destiny. In a time long ago, when the world was on the edge of a great change, there existed two powerful beings. One was a warrior of fire, whose wings were forged from the very flames that scorched the earth. The other, a noble hero, had been born with the weight of an ancient prophecy on his shoulders. Their paths were destined to cross, and when they did, it would be a confrontation unlike any other. The clash of their destinies would echo through the ages. The wind howled as the sky above crackled with fury. In the mountains, where the earth met the sky, a figure appeared, her wings spread wide, shimmering with the heat of 1,000 suns. She was known as Ileana, the Flameborn. Her wings were not of feathers, but of fire, beautiful, yet deadly. Born of a cataclysmic event, she had been raised by the fire itself, learning its secrets, mastering its power. Ileana had heard of the prophecy, the one that spoke of a hero who would rise to face the flames and extinguish them forever. But she did not believe in fate, not anymore. Fate had forsaken her, leaving her to live as an outcast. She was fire incarnate, burning bright, burning fierce. No prophecy could define her. Yet, the winds carried whispers of the hero, and in those whispers, a challenge. Can the flames of destiny be controlled, or must they consume everything? She murmured to herself, staring into the horizon. I will meet this hero. And we shall see if he is truly the one to stop me. Far away, in the heart of a great kingdom, a young knight named Cedric stood at the edge of a forest. The prophecy had been told to him since his birth: one with the wings of fire shall meet you in battle. Only when the flames fall will the world be saved. He had always thought of it as a myth, a mere tale told by the elders to inspire courage. But as he looked up at the stars, something deep within him stirred. The world was changing. Dark forces stirred in the shadows, and the lands trembled under the weight of an uncertain future. Cedric had trained all his life for a purpose, a destiny he had never fully understood. But now, as he stood alone in the quiet night, he realized the time had come. The path before him was unclear, but he knew one thing: he must face the one with the wings of flame. With his sword in hand and his heart steady, Cedric set out on a journey that would lead him into the heart of the mountains, where fire and fate would collide. The day had arrived. The sky burned a deep orange as Cedric reached the foot of the mountain where Ileana awaited him. Her fiery wings glowed brighter than ever, lighting the landscape like a blazing inferno. The air was thick with heat, but Cedric pressed forward, his armor heavy with the weight of the prophecy. As he approached, Ileana stood tall, her eyes fixed on him. Her wings fluttered with a rhythm that could only be described as a dance of destruction. I have been waiting for you, hero, she said, her voice like the crackling of 1,000 flames. Do you think you can stop me? Do you think your blade will be enough to douse my fire? Cedric tightened his grip on his sword. I am not here to extinguish you, Ileana. I am here to end the cycle of destruction. To stop the prophecy from destroying us both. She laughed, a sound as fierce as the flames themselves. You do not understand, hero. The fire is my life. It is not something I can simply extinguish. The prophecy is not a curse, it is my birthright. But it is also your doom, Cedric replied, stepping closer. I cannot let you continue this path. The world cannot burn forever. Ileana's eyes narrowed. Then we fight. The battle was fierce. The sound of steel clashing against flame filled the air, and the earth itself seemed to tremble beneath their feet. Cedric's sword gleamed in the light of Ileana's fire, its edge sharp and true. But each strike he delivered was met with a wall of flame, forcing him back. Ileana's wings burned with an intensity that could turn the sky into ash. Is this all you are, hero? Ileana taunted, her wings flapping powerfully. A mere mortal with a sword? Cedric gritted his teeth. I am more than that. I carry the weight of the future. And I will not let you destroy it. With a roar, Ileana launched herself into the sky, her wings expanding until they blocked out the sun. Fire rained down like meteors, but Cedric stood firm, his heart unwavering. He fought not just for himself, but for the future of the world. As the battle raged on, Cedric realized something: this was not a fight to destroy one another. It was a test of resolve, a test of purpose. Both were bound by fate, but neither truly understood the true meaning of their destiny. Amid the chaos, a moment of clarity struck. Cedric's sword, as powerful as it was, could not defeat the fire. But his heart could. And in that heart, he saw the truth of the prophecy. Ileana, too, felt the change. Her fiery wings flickered as she caught sight of the look in Cedric's eyes. It was not hatred, nor fear. It was understanding. I see now, Ileana said, her voice softening. We are not enemies, are we? No, Cedric replied. We are both bound by the same fate. But we have the power to change it. Together, they stood in the light of the fading flames, knowing that their destinies were not written in fire or sword, but in the choices they made. They had the power to rewrite the prophecy, to create a new future, one not bound by destruction, but by hope. The sun began to rise, casting a warm glow across the battlefield. The flames that had once raged so fiercely were now but embers, cooling in the light of a new day. Ileana folded her wings, the fire within them subsiding into a gentle warmth. Cedric stood by her side, his sword sheathed. Together, they had forged a new path, one that would lead them to rebuild what had been broken. The world was not saved by fire alone, but by the strength of their hearts, united in a common cause. As they looked toward the future, they knew that the clash of destiny had not been a battle of destruction, but of creation. And in the end, the flames of wings had not consumed the world, they had given birth to a new dawn. The morning was quiet, but the air was filled with a new sense of purpose. Cedric and Ileana stood side by side, looking out over the land that stretched before them. The battle they had fought together had not only changed the course of their destinies, but it had also begun to change the world around them. What now? Ileana asked, her voice no longer filled with the fierceness of battle, but with the uncertainty of someone who had just begun to understand the greater picture. Cedric looked at her with understanding, as if he too was realizing the weight of their decisions. We rebuild, he said simply. The prophecy told of destruction, but we have created something else, something better. Together, we can ensure that this world doesn't fall into darkness again. Ileana's fiery wings fluttered softly, as if she were absorbing the full meaning of his words. She had always lived with the fire, always knowing that it would consume her in the end. But now, it felt different. The fire was not her enemy. It was part of her, part of the balance they both sought to create. We can work together, she said, a smile flickering across her face. I'll help you rebuild, and perhaps we can find a way to control the fire, instead of letting it burn everything away. Cedric nodded. There is much to learn. And we can begin by traveling to the places that still need healing. The world will take time, but if we are patient, we can restore it to its former glory. The first step in their journey took them to the ruins of a village that had been ravaged by war. The once thriving community was now nothing more than smoldering ashes, its inhabitants lost in the ravages of time. But Cedric and Ileana did not see the destruction as an end. Instead, it was a canvas waiting to be transformed. They began to work together, Ileana using her fire to forge new paths, to burn away the old, and create the foundation for new growth. Cedric worked alongside her, using his strength to clear debris and build what had been lost. Together, they helped bring life back to the land. As they worked, they found that their bond grew deeper. The fire within Ileana no longer seemed like a force of destruction. It became a symbol of transformation, of renewal. She learned to control it, to use it not just as a weapon, but as a tool for creation. Cedric, in turn, began to see that the prophecy wasn't about a battle to the death, but about the balance between fire and light, destruction and rebirth. They were not enemies, but allies, two halves of a whole that had been forged in the flames of destiny. But their journey was not without challenges. As they traveled from village to village, they found that not all were receptive to their message of hope and renewal. There were those who feared the power of Ileana's flames, who believed that the prophecy had been right all along, that fire, in any form, was a threat that must be extinguished. A group of rebels, known as the Order of the Ashen, rose up to challenge them. They believed that fire was a curse, one that must be wiped from the world to restore peace. Their leader, a man named Varun, had once been a scholar of the old texts and had believed in the prophecy of destruction. Now, he sought to end the very thing that had been born of fire. "We cannot let this continue," Varun declared, standing at the head of his followers, who had gathered in the shadow of a ruined temple. "The flames will destroy us all. The prophecy must be fulfilled." Cedric stepped forward, his hand on his sword, but his voice calm. The prophecy was a warning, not a command. "We do not have to follow the path of destruction." But Varun was unyielding. "You are a fool, Cedric. You and the Flameborn both. You are playing with fire that should never have been lit." Ileana's wings flared up, the heat rising around her. "Then I will show you what true fire can do," she said, her voice fierce once more. But this time, her words were not filled with anger. They were a statement of purpose. "I will not let fear rule this world." The tension between the two sides grew thick, but Cedric raised his hand, silencing Ileana. "No more fighting. We have the power to change the course of this world. We do not need to repeat the mistakes of the past." Varun, seeing that neither Cedric nor Ileana would back down, turned to his followers and gave the command to attack. The clash was inevitable. The rebels surged forward, their weapons drawn, intent on destroying the very thing they feared. But as the battle began, Ileana hesitated. She had fought with fire all her life, but now, she understood that her flames had a greater purpose. They could heal, they could renew, but they could also destroy. It was a delicate balance. Cedric was beside her, his sword drawn, but his actions were not that of a warrior bent on victory. He fought to protect, not to destroy. He fought to show that change was possible, that the flames of war did not have to consume the world. "Ileana," he called, as the battle raged around them. "We must stop this before it is too late. We cannot allow destruction to win." She looked at him, her eyes filled with understanding. "You are right, Cedric. This battle ends here." With a single motion, Ileana spread her wings wide, and for the first time, she released her fire not in anger, but in peace. The flames spread gently, engulfing the battlefield in a light that softened the sharp edges of war. The heat was not a weapon, it was a message: we are all bound by the same fate, and we can choose a path of peace. As the flames died down, the rebels stood in awe. Varun, too, felt the shift within him. His anger faded, replaced by the realization that the prophecy had been misinterpreted. It was not a call to war, but a call to balance. When the dust settled, the land was quiet once more. The fire had burned, yes, but it had not consumed. It had transformed. The rebels laid down their weapons, and in the silence that followed, a new understanding grew between them. Cedric and Ileana had faced their destinies, but they had rewritten them not through battle, but through understanding. The world was not saved by fire alone, nor by swords, but by the will to heal, to rebuild, and to embrace the balance that both destruction and creation could offer. As the sun set on that new day, Ileana and Cedric stood together, knowing that their journey had just begun. They had fought not against each other, but for each other. And in doing so, they had changed the course of the world forever. As the days passed, Cedric and Ileana continued their travels, spreading the message of peace and balance to the corners of the world. What had once been a land of constant war was now slowly beginning to heal. With villages flourishing, crops growing, and the land itself showing signs of recovery. However, as the world seemed to calm, a new threat loomed, one that neither Cedric nor Ileana had anticipated. In the shadows of the mountains, far from the reach of the peaceful travelers, there existed an ancient order that had long observed the rise and fall of civilizations. The Order of the Eternal Flame, an enigmatic group who believed that only through perpetual conflict and the burning of all things could the true essence of existence be revealed. They saw the actions of Cedric and Ileana as an affront to their beliefs, a dangerous rebellion against the order of nature itself. Their leader, known only as the Watcher, had been keeping a close eye on the progress of the young heroes. Now, as the winds of change swept through the world, he knew that their influence had to be stopped. The prophecy had not been fulfilled in the way he had foreseen, and this disturbance could not be allowed to stand. "Let the fire burn once again," the Watcher murmured, his voice a whisper carried on the wind. Only through destruction can creation truly be understood. The first sign of the Order's presence was subtly a series of strange, unexplained fires that began to appear in the villages Cedric and Ileana had visited. The fires were not destructive in the traditional sense. Instead, they left behind nothing but a peculiar ash, a fine powder that seemed to drain the life from the land itself. Crops withered, the air grew heavy, and even the rivers began to slow. Ileana felt the familiar warmth of the fire inside her stir again, but this time, it was different. The fire was cold, unnatural, as if someone was using it for a purpose that defied the natural balance. "Something is wrong," Ileana said, her voice filled with unease. "This is not like any fire I've ever seen." Cedric frowned, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword. "The Order of the Eternal Flame," he muttered, remembering the old legends. "They believe in destruction for its own sake. They want to undo everything we've worked for." The two of them set out to investigate the source of these strange fires, but they knew the path would not be easy. The deeper they traveled into the mountains, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The air grew thick with smoke, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble with the pulse of some dark power. After days of searching, Cedric and Ileana arrived at the heart of the mountains, where they found the hidden sanctuary of the Order. It was a temple built into the very rock of the mountainside, its walls covered in ancient symbols of flame and destruction. The Watcher awaited them at the entrance, his eyes gleaming with a cold, unwavering light. "So, you have come," the Watcher said, his voice low and unfeeling. "You, who would defy the natural order. You who would turn fire into a tool of creation rather than destruction." Cedric stepped forward, his sword raised in defiance. "We do not seek to destroy, Watcher. We seek to rebuild, to heal the wounds that have been inflicted on this world." The Watcher laughed, a hollow, echoing sound. "Rebuild? There is no rebuilding, Cedric. There is only the fire. It is the beginning and the end. Nothing else matters." Ileana's wings flared, the fire within her growing brighter with each passing moment. "You are wrong," she said firmly. "Fire is not the enemy. The enemy is hatred. The enemy is fear. And you, Watcher, are ruled by both." The Watcher narrowed his eyes, his expression cold and unyielding. "Then you will learn, as all who defy the flame must, that there can be no peace. Only the eternal burn." With a sudden movement, the Watcher raised his hands, and the fire around them flared to life. But this fire was different, dark, twisting, and unnatural. It was as if the flames themselves were alive, reaching out to consume everything in their path. Ileana stepped forward, her own fire clashing with the dark flames of the Watcher. The heat from their powers created a whirlwind of energy, pushing the air into a frenzy. Cedric stood beside her, his sword drawn, ready to fight. The battle was not one of mere strength, it was a battle of wills. The Watcher sought to destroy the balance they had worked so hard to create, but Cedric and Ileana were resolute. Their fire was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of life, of change, of hope. As the battle reached its peak, Ileana felt the weight of the fire within her, its warmth and its pain. She had always feared it would consume her, but now, she understood its true purpose. The fire was not her enemy, it was a part of her, just as much as it was a part of the world. She had to learn to master it, to shape it into something more. With a surge of energy, Ileana raised her hands, calling upon the fire in a way she never had before. She allowed it to flow through her, to become a force of renewal. The flames she conjured were not destructive, but healing and all-encompassing warmth that began to push back the dark fire of the Watcher. The Watcher roared in fury as his flames began to falter, unable to withstand the purity of Ileana's fire. With one final, powerful burst of energy, she directed the flames toward him, not to destroy, but to cleanse. The dark fire was extinguished, and the Watcher fell to his knees, his strength broken. "You cannot fight what is meant to be," Ileana said softly, her wings glowing with a soft, golden light. "The flame is not a weapon. It is a gift." The Watcher looked up at her, his expression one of defeat. Perhaps you are right," he whispered, the fire in his eyes dimming. "The world, the flame, it was never meant to be used for destruction." With that, he disappeared into the smoke, his form dissolving into the wind. In the aftermath of the battle, the world began to change once more. The dark fires that had ravaged the land were gone, and the balance that Cedric and Ileana had worked so hard to restore was now stronger than ever. The two of them stood together, looking out at the horizon. The sun was rising, casting a golden light across the land. It was a new dawn, one that would bring with it the promise of peace, renewal, and growth. "We did it," Cedric said, his voice filled with awe. Ileana nodded, her wings folding gently behind her. "We did it together." And as they looked toward the future, they knew that their journey was far from over. The world was still healing, but with each passing day, it grew stronger. And together, they would ensure that the flame of destiny would never again be used for destruction. With the Watcher's fall, peace seemed to settle over the land once more. The sky above was clear, the air fresh with the promise of renewal, and the earth, once scorched by fire, began to flourish once again. But the tranquility was fleeting. The flame, though extinguished in one form, was not gone completely. A new threat began to emerge, not from fire itself, but from those who had once been loyal to the order of the eternal flame. They were not content to let their leader's fall mark the end of their mission. A new figure rose among them, one even more dangerous than the Watcher had been, an ancient being called Nyx, a master of shadow and flame. Nyx was unlike any enemy Cedric and Ileana had faced before. She wielded not just the fire of destruction, but also the darkness of night, the shadows that hid secrets, and the fear that lurked in the hearts of men. It was not fire alone that Nyx used, but an eternal twilight, a balance of both light and dark that threatened to drown the world in uncertainty. One evening, as they traveled through the forest, Cedric and Ileana felt a change in the wind. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The air grew heavier, the shadows seemed longer, and an unnatural silence settled over the trees. They paused, senses heightened, knowing that something was amiss. "I don't like this," Ileana whispered, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword, her wings slightly extended. "This feels different from before." Cedric, his eyes scanning the horizon, nodded gravely. "She's here. Nyx has come for the flame, and this time, she's not just bringing fire. She's bringing darkness." That night, as they camped near the edge of the forest, the skies darkened in an instant. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and the stars disappeared, leaving them in complete blackness. The flame in Ileana's heart flickered uneasily, as though struggling against a heavy weight. It was then that they heard her voice, a whisper carried on the wind, soft and eerie. "You think you've won, Ileana? You think you've mastered the flame? The fire is not yours to control." From the shadows emerged Nyx, cloaked in the darkness of the night. Her form was ethereal, her eyes glowing like embers in the dark. Her presence seemed to drain the very light from the world, as if she were the personification of the shadow itself. With her hands outstretched, she summoned a swirling vortex of shadow and flame, twisting it into a sphere of darkness that crackled with both heat and cold. Ileana stepped forward, her wings fully unfurled, ready for the coming battle. "I have no intention of letting you twist the flame to your will, Nyx. The flame belongs to the world, not to one person, not to destruction." Nyx laughed softly, her voice carrying an otherworldly echo. "You still don't understand, do you? The flame cannot be tamed. It cannot be used to heal. It is a force of nature, and it must consume everything in its path." Cedric drew his sword, standing firm beside Ileana. "Then you are blind, Nyx. You will never understand the true meaning of the flame, because you only see it as a tool of power." Nyx's eyes narrowed. "Power is everything, Cedric. You will learn that soon enough." With a wave of her hand, the shadows around them deepened, and the ground itself began to crack. The very earth trembled as Nyx unleashed her power, a torrent of flame and darkness that cascaded toward them like a tidal wave. Ileana met it with her own flame, but the darkness fought back with an unnatural force, pushing against her and threatening to overwhelm her. The battle raged on through the night, a clash of light and shadow, fire and darkness, each side struggling to dominate the other. Ileana's flames burned bright, but Nyx's darkness was all-encompassing. Cedric fought alongside her, his sword cutting through the shadows, but for every strike, more shadows seemed to arise, consuming the light around them. "Ileana, we need to find a way to break her hold on the flame," Cedric shouted over the roar of the battle. "We can't fight darkness with darkness." "I know," Ileana responded, her voice strained as she forced her wings to shield herself from the oncoming shadow. "But if we can't use the fire to fight her, then what can we do?" Then, something shifted within Ileana. She realized that she had been using the fire as a weapon just as Nyx used darkness. But the true power of the flame wasn't in destruction. It was in creation, in light, in renewal. She closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the first time she had felt the fire within her. The warmth and the light, not as a weapon, but as a force of life. "I understand now," she whispered, a deep calm settling over her. "The flame isn't just to fight. It's to illuminate. It's to guide." With a newfound clarity, Ileana lifted her hands to the heavens, calling upon the fire within her, but this time, she did not fight the darkness. She embraced the light, letting it flow outward in a wave of pure radiance. The fire did not burn, it illuminated the world around them, casting the darkness into retreat. Nyx snarled, her shadowy form writhing as the light reached her, but she could not withstand it. The flames of creation, the light of renewal, pushed her back, and the darkness began to dissolve. "No!" Nyx screamed, her form beginning to fade, as if the light itself was unraveling her very being. You cannot erase the darkness. It is eternal, but it is not all-encompassing, Ileana said, her voice firm and steady. Light and darkness must coexist. But the light must always lead. With one final burst of flame, Ileana's fire exploded outward, not to burn, but to cleanse. The shadows dissolved, and Nyx, with her hold on the flame shattered, disappeared into the wind, her form vanishing like smoke. The battle was over, but the war within Ileana's heart was far from finished. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, the world began to heal once more. The fire had been rekindled, not as a force of destruction, but as a force of balance, a symbol of both light and shadow, creation and destruction. Cedric stood beside Ileana, his expression soft with admiration. You did it. You found the way. Ileana smiled, her wings folding gently behind her as the fire within her flickered brightly. It wasn't just me. It was the flame, and the world that gave me strength. Light and dark, they are not enemies. They are the same force, and together, they make the world whole. As they watched the sun rise over the land, they knew that their journey was far from over. There would always be challenges to face, but with the flame of creation and balance guiding them, they were ready for whatever came next. The flame would never die, for it was both their strength and their hope. The land was quiet once more, but the echoes of the battle against Nyx lingered in the hearts of those who had fought. The world had changed, and so had Ileana. She had seen firsthand the destructive power of unrestrained fire and the suffocating grip of unchecked darkness. But she had also learned the delicate balance between the two. It was this knowledge that would guide her, and Cedric, as they set out on their next journey. They had hoped for peace, but they knew that peace was never permanent. The flame, though it had been rekindled, could never be fully controlled. It would always attract those who sought to wield its power for their own ends. And in the corners of the world, new threats were stirring. Do you ever think it will end? Ileana asked one evening as they camped near a calm river. The sound of the water flowing gently around them was a stark contrast to the battles they had faced. Cedric sat beside her, his eyes fixed on the fire they had built. I don't think any of us are meant to see an end. Not yet. But I do believe that every fight, every challenge, brings us closer to understanding. Understanding the flame. Understanding ourselves. Ileana nodded, her gaze drifting to the horizon. The flame will never be tamed. It will always test us, always push us to the edge of what we are capable of. But maybe that's what we are meant to do. To keep moving forward, even when the path is uncertain. Cedric smiled, his voice filled with resolve. We carry the flame, but we don't carry it alone. It's a part of everyone who stands with us. It's a part of this world. And as long as we stand together, we can face anything. But the peace they had found was fragile. Far to the north, a new force was rising. A powerful sorcerer named Varen had begun to gather followers, promising them the ultimate control over fire and shadow. Unlike Nyx, Varen was not content to hide in the shadows. He was bold, and his ambition knew no bounds. He sought the flame of eternity, an ancient relic said to hold the power to bend both fire and darkness to the will of its bearer. The stories of this relic had been whispered for generations, but few believed it was real. Now, Varen's growing army and his relentless search for the flame of eternity had made the relic's existence a dangerous reality. Ileana and Cedric could no longer ignore the threat that Varen posed. They knew that the flame of eternity, in the wrong hands, could bring an end to everything they had fought for. The flame was not just a weapon, it was the heart of the world itself. Whoever controlled it would control the balance of light and darkness. If Varen found it, his reign of power would be unstoppable. Their journey took them across treacherous landscapes through burning deserts where the air shimmered with heat, across frozen tundras where the cold gnawed at their bones, and into the heart of ancient forests, where the whispers of forgotten powers spoke of the flame of eternity's resting place. With every step, the pressure mounted. Varen's influence spread like wildfire, his dark magic tainting the land, corrupting the very elements they once relied on. They encountered resistance along the way, mercenaries and dark disciples, followers of Varen's twisted vision. But Ileana and Cedric fought on, their bond stronger than ever, their resolve unyielding. Yet as they approached the mountains where the flame of eternity was said to be hidden, Ileana felt a shift in the air. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but she knew that they were not alone. The flame, it seemed, was aware of the bond it was calling to her. "Cedric," Ileana whispered one evening as they made camp, "do you feel it? The flame, it's closer." Cedric looked at her, concern in his eyes. "What does it feel like?" "It's alive. It's not just a fire. It's something older, something more powerful than I've ever sensed before." Her words hung in the air, and the fire crackled softly in the night. Cedric stood and gazed into the distance, his mind racing with the implications of her words. "We need to find it before Varen does. If we don't, everything we've fought for will be lost." They arrived at the ancient temple deep within the mountains. The air here was thick with power, and the ground hummed with energy. At the heart of the temple lay the flame of eternity, protected by a series of intricate puzzles and traps. It was said that only those pure of heart, those who understood the true nature of fire, could approach the flame without being consumed by it. As Ileana and Cedric ventured deeper into the temple, they were faced with trials that tested their strength, their courage, and their understanding of the flame. They had to confront their own darkest fears of failure, of loss, of the flame consuming them. But with every trial, they grew stronger. The flame within them pulsed brighter, guiding them forward. At last, they reached the chamber where the flame of eternity lay. It was not a typical fire, but a swirling vortex of light and shadow, a perfect balance between the two forces. The moment Ileana stepped forward, the flame seemed to recognize her, its light growing warmer, its pull stronger. "You have come," a voice echoed through the chamber, ancient and wise. It was the voice of the flame itself, a voice that had not been heard for eons. "I have come to protect you," Ileana replied, her voice steady. "To ensure that you are not misused. The flame is not meant to be controlled. It is meant to guide." The flame flickered, as though considering her words. Then it spoke again, its voice a whisper. "The world is on the brink. The balance of light and darkness is fragile. Varen seeks to tip the scales, to use the flame as a tool for power. But you, Ileana, have the heart to wield it properly." "But I cannot do it alone," she said, her gaze turning to Cedric, standing by her side. "I need the strength of my allies, the wisdom of those who understand the balance. Together, we can protect it." The flame of eternity flickered once more, its light expanding until it bathed the entire chamber in a radiant glow. "Then take it, but know this: every flame carries a burden. It is not just a gift. It is a responsibility." Ileana stepped forward, her heart full of determination. She extended her hands toward the flame of eternity, feeling its warmth pulse through her fingertips. In that moment, she understood. The flame was not just a weapon, it was the essence of life, the force that bound the world together. To wield it was not to control it, but to protect it, to let it guide those worthy of its power. The moment her hands touched the flame, a surge of energy coursed through her, filling her with both light and darkness. She could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she was not afraid. She was ready. With the flame of eternity in her grasp, Ileana and Cedric now had the power to face Varen and restore balance to the world. But their journey was far from over. The true test was yet to come. The weight of the flame of eternity pulsed within Ileana, and she felt its immense power in every fiber of her being. It was a burden, a responsibility, yet it was also the key to restoring balance. With Cedric by her side, they now had what was needed to face Varen, the dark sorcerer who sought to twist the power of the flame for his own ends. The world was growing darker by the day, the skies heavy with the promise of an approaching storm. Far to the north, Varen's army had gathered, preparing to unleash the full force of their dark magic upon the land. The battle they had all feared was finally upon them. "We must hurry," Cedric said, his voice grim. "Varen won't wait forever. And neither will the darkness he commands." Ileana nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of their task. They had traveled far, endured countless trials, and now the final confrontation awaited them. The flame of eternity was the key, but its power alone was not enough. They would need to fight with everything they had: their courage, their will, and their love for the world they sought to protect. The day of the final confrontation dawned, and the skies seemed to tremble with anticipation. Ileana and Cedric stood at the gates of Varen's stronghold, an ancient fortress of stone and shadow that seemed to breathe with an ominous presence. The wind howled through the barren landscape, carrying with it the scent of smoke and ash. As they stepped forward, the ground beneath them trembled, and a voice, cold and cruel, echoed from the fortress walls. "So, you have come. The flame of eternity is mine to command, and you cannot stop me." Ileana's heart quickened, but she stood firm. "We will stop you, Varen. The flame cannot be controlled by one man. It belongs to the balance of light and darkness. It is not yours to wield." Laughter echoed from within the fortress, and a figure cloaked in shadows stepped forward: Varen himself. His eyes gleamed with an unnatural light, and his presence was like a shadow that devoured the light around him. "You misunderstand, little warrior," Varen sneered. "I do not seek to control the flame. I seek to reshape the world in my image, to command both light and darkness as I see fit. I will be the master of all." The air crackled with dark energy as Varen raised his hands, summoning the powers of fire and shadow. The earth trembled beneath their feet, and Ileana could feel the heat of his magic threatening to consume everything in its path. But she was not afraid. She had the flame of eternity now, and she knew what she had to do. She raised her hands, channeling the power of the flame through her, feeling its warmth spread through her body. "We are the guardians of the flame, Varen," Ileana called out. "And we will stop you." The battle that ensued was fierce, a clash of light and dark, fire and shadow. Varen unleashed torrents of dark magic, summoning storms of shadow that sought to engulf everything in their path. But Ileana, with the flame of eternity, countered with waves of light that pushed back the darkness. Cedric fought by her side, his sword flashing as it cut through the shadows. Together, they held their ground, but Varen's power was immense. The dark sorcerer struck again and again, each blow stronger than the last. The earth cracked beneath their feet, and the sky above seemed to fracture as the battle reached its peak. Amidst the chaos, Ileana realized something: this was not just a battle of power. It was a battle of hearts, a test of will and resolve. She could feel the flame of eternity within her, not as a weapon, but as a part of her soul. It was not something to be wielded for destruction. It was a force that thrived on hope, on the balance between light and dark. With a cry, Ileana called upon the full power of the flame. It erupted from her hands in a brilliant explosion of light, washing over the battlefield and pushing back the shadow that Varen had summoned. The darkness screamed as it was banished, retreating before the unstoppable force of the flame. Varen, now weakened, staggered back. His eyes were wide with disbelief. How? How can you wield the flame like this? It's impossible. The flame is not a tool to be used, Ileana said, her voice unwavering. It is a living force, a part of the very world we protect. And no one, not even you, can control it. With one final surge of energy, Ileana unleashed the full power of the flame of eternity, sending a wave of light crashing toward Varen. The dark sorcerer screamed as the light engulfed him, and in that moment, his form dissolved into the ether, vanishing without a trace. As the dust settled and the battlefield fell silent, Ileana and Cedric stood together, their bodies bruised and battered but victorious. The flame of eternity had not been destroyed, but its power had been used to restore balance, to banish the darkness that had threatened to consume the world. The sun began to rise, casting its golden light over the land. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, peace began to settle in the hearts of all who had fought. Ileana gazed out across the horizon, her heart full of both relief and sorrow. The battle was over, but the journey was not. The flame of eternity would always be a part of her, a guiding light in the darkness. She and Cedric had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope and love could prevail. We did it, Cedric said softly, standing beside her. Ileana nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. We did it together, and the world will heal. It always does. And so, with the flame of eternity as their guide, Ileana and Cedric set off toward new horizons. The world was at peace for now. But they knew that their journey was far from over. The flame would always burn, and as long as it did, they would remain its guardians, ever ready to defend the balance between light and darkness. As the days turned into weeks, the peace that had been restored began to settle over the world. Cities rebuilt, fields flourished once more, and the land breathed freely without the oppressive shadow of Varen's tyranny. But deep within Ileana's heart, something still lingered, a quiet voice she could not ignore. The flame of eternity was not a simple tool to be used at will. It was not just an instrument of destruction or a beacon of hope, it was a living force, and Ileana had come to understand its true nature. The flame was a force of balance, forever shifting between light and dark, shaping the course of the world. And though she had stopped Varen, she knew that the battle against darkness was never truly over. Ileana, Cedric said one morning, breaking her thoughts. He stood at the edge of their camp, his eyes scanning the horizon. I've been hearing rumors, whispers of shadows that have begun to stir again. Even though Varen is gone, there are forces at work in the world that we may not fully understand. Ileana felt a chill run through her. She had feared this moment. What do you mean? More dark sorcerers? Cults of forgotten magic? Not just that, Cedric replied, his voice grim. There are signs that the flame itself is calling to something. Something or someone who seeks to claim it. Ileana's heart raced. She had felt it, tooth pull of the flame, as if it were reaching beyond their world, beckoning to something in the distance. The flame is calling out, but to whom? I don't know, Cedric admitted, his brow furrowed in concern. But we must find out, before it's too late. And so, once again, Ileana and Cedric prepared for another journey. They had barely begun to rest when a new trial called to them. The flame of eternity was not finished with them yet. The journey ahead was uncertain. Ileana and Cedric traveled far from the lands they once knew, heading into the forgotten corners of the world, places where the flame's light had never reached. The air grew colder, the skies darker, and the winds carried with them the scent of ancient magic that had long since been sealed away by the forces of light. Ileana's thoughts remained fixed on the flame. Its power had changed her, but it had also made her more attuned to the world's energies, its subtle shifts, its desires, and its needs. She could feel the pulse of the world around her, could sense when something was amiss, even when she couldn't see it. As they crossed through a dense forest, Cedric stopped suddenly, his sharp eyes catching a movement in the trees. "Do you feel that?" he asked, his voice low. Ileana nodded. The air had grown still, too still. She could sense it now, a disturbance in the balance, a tremor of darkness that was not natural. From the depths of the trees, a figure emerged. Cloaked in shadow, it was neither human nor beast, but something ancient and far more powerful. It spoke in a voice that echoed in Ileana's mind, its words laced with both promise and warning. "You seek the flame, guardians. But know this, it is not yours to control. You are merely its stewards, and you will find that its true purpose lies beyond what you understand." The figure's form shifted, becoming more solid with each passing second. It was a being older than the flame itself, a force that had watched over it from the beginning. The air shimmered with the intensity of its power, and Ileana felt a deep shiver run through her. "What do you want?" she asked, stepping forward, her voice steady despite the growing tension. The figure regarded her with eyes that burned like stars in the dark sky. "I am the keeper of the boundaries." The flame of eternity was never meant to be a weapon, nor a tool of balance. It is a beacon, an invitation to the world's true future. A future where light and darkness no longer fight, but coexist. Ileana's heart clenched. She had always believed in the balance between light and dark, but this was different. Coexist? How can that be? The keeper's voice deepened, reverberating through the very ground beneath them. "The flame will call out again and again. But it will not simply call to those who seek power. It will call to those who wish to heal the world, to shape it in ways you cannot yet comprehend. And you, guardians, must choose: will you continue to protect it, or will you let it lead you to the unknown?" With those words, the keeper vanished, leaving behind only the echoes of its words and the weight of its message. The journey ahead was no longer clear. Ileana and Cedric knew that they had a choice to make. The flame of eternity had never been simply about fighting darkness. It was about understanding the true nature of the world and perhaps even changing it. As they sat by their campfire that night, Ileana gazed into the flames, watching the way it danced and flickered, never fully still. The flame was a part of her now, a living force that was always changing, always shifting. It was not meant to be controlled, it was meant to guide them. "The keeper spoke of healing," Cedric said, breaking the silence. "Of a future where light and dark don't fight each other but exist together." Ileana's gaze remained fixed on the fire, her thoughts turning over the keeper's words. She had always believed that light and dark were opposites, forces that must be balanced. But now, she wondered, could there be a way for them to work together, not in opposition, but as equal forces shaping the future of the world? "We must learn what the flame truly means," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. "It's not just about stopping the darkness. It's about understanding both sides, light and shadow. Together, they hold the key to what the world can become." Cedric nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Then we will seek that understanding, no matter where it leads us. The flame is our guide." And so, Ileana and Cedric's journey continued, not just to protect the flame of eternity, but to learn from it, to unlock its mysteries, and to embrace both the light and the dark in their hearts. The road ahead was uncertain, but they would face it together, with the flame to guide them, and the knowledge that their destiny was tied to the future of the world. Days turned into weeks as Ileana and Cedric ventured deeper into the wild lands, places where no light had ever truly penetrated. Their journey took them through ancient ruins, forgotten temples, and desolate plains where the whispers of long-lost civilizations echoed on the wind. One evening, as they rested near a sparkling river, the flame within Ileana began to glow brighter than ever before, pulsing with an unfamiliar energy. It was as though the flame itself was calling out to them. "I can feel it," Ileana said, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. "The flame, it's growing stronger. It's like it's searching for something." Cedric's hand instinctively reached for the hilt of his sword, though he knew there was no enemy in sight. "What do you mean, searching for something?" "I don't know," Ileana replied, her eyes narrowing in concentration. "But I feel its power, urging us forward. It's as if we're being drawn to something, a place. Then we follow it," Cedric said, determination in his voice. "The flame has guided us this far. If it's leading us to something, we must trust it." And so, they set out once again, following the unseen pull that guided them deeper into the unknown. After many days of traveling, they arrived at the edge of a vast and ancient chasm. The air was thick with an eerie silence, and before them, a dark abyss stretched as far as the eye could see. Ileana felt the flame in her chest beat faster, as though it recognized the place. It was here, in this very chasm, that the greatest test awaited them. "This is it," she whispered. "The realm of echoes." The realm of echoes was a place lost to time, a dimension that existed outside the bounds of their world. It was said to be the place where the boundaries between light and dark blurred, where both forces were neither completely separate nor entirely united. The echo of every choice made, every action taken, could be felt within these walls. Cedric stepped forward, his eyes scanning the horizon. "What happens here?" "The flame. It will show us the truth," Ileana replied. "The truth about the balance between light and dark, and whether we can truly understand both." As they stepped into the chasm, the world around them seemed to warp and shift. The air became thick with whispers, voices of the past, present, and future, all converging in a single moment. The echoes of countless lives, choices, and fates surrounded them, each whisper more haunting than the last. "Ileana," Cedric said, his voice strained. "This place. It feels like we're not alone. Like something is watching us." "Perhaps it is," Ileana said softly. "The realm of echoes doesn't just show us the past. It reveals the choices we've made and the choices we still must face. Every shadow of our decisions. They're here." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, and the air was filled with a swirling mass of energy. The flame within Ileana flared brightly, reacting to the surge of power that seemed to rise from the depths of the chasm. A figure emerged from the darkness, cloaked in the shadow of the realm. It was an embodiment of the flame itself, its form shifting and flickering, a being of both light and dark, neither one nor the other. "You have come," the figure intoned, its voice resonating in Ileana's mind. "To seek the truth, to understand the flame, and to discover your fate." "We've come to learn," Ileana said, her voice steady despite the overwhelming presence before them. "To understand how light and dark can coexist." The figure regarded her silently, its eyes burning with an intensity that seemed to pierce through her very soul. "The flame is both the key and the lock. It holds the potential for creation and destruction. But only those who understand both sides can wield it without breaking the world." Ileana and Cedric exchanged a glance. This was the moment they had been preparing for. The truth they had sought all this time was within reach. "What must we do?" Cedric asked, stepping forward. The figure raised its hand, and the air around them shifted again. A portal opened before them, swirling with a bright, blinding light. Through it, they could see glimpses of countless worlds in balance, worlds in chaos, and worlds on the edge of collapse. "Step through," the figure instructed. "See what awaits you. But be warned, the flame will show you what you are, what you could be." and what you might become. Only then will you understand its true power. Ileana hesitated for a moment before nodding. Together, she and Cedric stepped through the portal. The moment they crossed the threshold, they found themselves in a world unlike any they had ever seen. The sky above them was filled with swirling flames, both fiery and cold, as though the world itself was caught in an eternal dance between opposing forces. The ground beneath their feet was a vast, shifting desert, where every grain of sand seemed to be alive, reacting to their presence. Before them stood an ancient tower, its walls covered in intricate runes, glowing with the same fiery light that filled the air. At the base of the tower, an altar stood surrounded by the remnants of past sacrifices, long forgotten. "This is it," Ileana whispered. "The heart of the flame." As they approached the altar, the figure from the realm of echoes appeared before them once again. "You stand at the crossroads of destiny," it said. "What will you choose?" Ileana's heart raced as she stepped forward, her hand outstretched. The flame within her thrummed in response, resonating with the altar before her. She could feel the immense power it held, both destructive and life-giving. "I choose to understand," she said, her voice strong. "I choose to learn the balance, not just between light and dark, but within myself." The figure nodded, its gaze shifting to Cedric. "And you, Guardian? What will you choose?" Cedric's eyes met the figure's. "I choose to stand by Ileana. To face whatever comes, together. We will not let the flame destroy us. We will shape it into something that will heal the world." A powerful surge of energy erupted from the altar, filling the air with light. The flame, now fully awakened, enveloped them both in its warmth and light, intertwining with their very beings. And in that moment, they understood the flame was not a weapon. It was a guide, a force of balance that could only be wielded by those who understood both light and dark, and the delicate dance between them. When the light faded, Ileana and Cedric stood at the heart of the flame, changed forever. The flame no longer consumed them. Instead, it had become a part of them, a force they could channel, but never control. It was a reflection of their own hearts, flawed, but ever striving toward balance. The world beyond the chasm had changed. The echoes of destiny had been heard, and with them came a new understanding, a new purpose. "The world will never be the same," Ileana said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "But we will guide it. Together." Cedric smiled, his eyes gleaming with the same fire that now burned within them both. "Yes. Together." And with that, the flame of eternity continued to burn, not as a force of destruction, but as a beacon of hope, a light that would guide them through the darkness, and into a future they would shape together. That's the end of today's story. See you.